Lynn Terry here, clicknews.com. I mentioned that I went to the Apple Store last week to get my iPad repaired, and many of you were interested in what my experience was at the Apple Store. So I'll tell you, I live in Tennessee, and the nearest Apple Store was in Nashville, which for me is a 4-hour round trip. And so I spent an hour at the Apple Store, and 5 hours and over $380 later, I am back in an iPad. Of course, without a shattered screen, so everything's working great now. My experience at the Apple Store was not pleasant. I'll tell you, a lot of people think, they call it the Genius Bar. So what happens is if you have a question, or if you need help, or if you need a repair or replacement or something like that with your Apple products, then you go to the Apple Store and you go to what's called the Genius Bar. And they give this illusion like it's some great experience or it's some really cool thing. I mean, it's the Genius Bar, right? My experience, not so hot. Not so hot. So I'll explain to you what it was like. It was very crowded. It was very loud. The place was packed, and I was there at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. So I kind of thought, well, I picked a good time. It won't be so bad, right? No. So you had to kind of navigate your way in. First of all, it's located in the middle of a mall, which I wasn't told, when I called on the phone and talked to the guys at the Genius Bar, the Apple Store, whatever. But it's on the second floor of this huge mall in Cool Springs. And so all I knew was the address that I had. I popped it in there, and I get to this building, and it's kind of a parking garage or something, and TomTom says, "You have arrived at your destination." And I'm like, oh no, right? So I'm like 15 minutes, certainly no problem. But I had no idea where to go. So I called from my cell phone, and I got hung up on. Seriously. They picked up the phone and put it right back down. So I called again, and they said, can I put you on hold? Click. So twice I'm sitting there on hold forever and ever. So finally I have to ask a complete stranger in the city, alone of course, which is not ideal. And I managed to get into the mall, get through Dillard's, get up to the second floor, and wander around until I find this Apple Store, which doesn't actually say Apple, and it really blends in because it's just this big white front with a big whiter apple in the middle of it. So there's no big sign that says the Apple Store or anything like that. So if anything, it was just harder to see in all the badness of the mall than anything. And so I finally get in there. It's like 3 minutes after 3. My appointment was at 3 o'clock. So I'm asking around. It takes me a few minutes to find an actual employee at the Apple Store because this place is packed, literally wall to wall. And they said, "Oh, your name's already been called. You missed your appointment." It's like, all right. So anyway, they work me in. So you make this appointment. You go through all this rigmarole, right? And you have an appointment at the Genius Bar. Well, all it is that there is a shelf around the edge of the store, and that's the Genius Bar. And so in the middle of the sales room, in the middle of the sales floor, with all this madness going on, you basically just scoot over there and find a little place at the shelf, right, to work with your particular rep. Well, the very first thing that happened, of course, was, I showed the guy what's going on. I had it in the box, and I opened the box, and so he just kind of takes a look at it and says, of course, what they told me on the phone. We can't repair these, or we're not repairing these yet, and so we'll have to replace it, and the cost is going to be $349. And I said, well, on the phone, I was told that it would not be more than $299. And he goes, oh, well, you have a 64 gig. That was for a 32 gig. So a mistake, customer service-wise, number one there, was that they should have asked me my product specifications before they gave me a quote, period. So I'm disappointed right off the bat because it's going to be more than I expected. Of course, they charge tax, so it was about $100 more than I thought it would be at the most, as she said. So I was not real happy about that. He was very matter-of-fact, the rep that I worked with. He was not empathetic at all. It's basically like, you're lost kind of a thing. And so I think that I expected to have more of a good customer service experience because it's Apple. And we have this vision of how Apple is and how they are so superior and how they make their products and how they treat their customers and things like that. And that's not at all what I got at all. And So we talked about insurance options. He says, oh, Apple doesn't bother with that. Like I said, he was very nonchalant and just kind of blew me off, basically, the whole time. So I spent an hour in there. And the next thing that I asked him was about the Apple iPad case. I explained to him, I said, I'm really concerned with this. I said, I have almost $1,000 prior to getting this repair done in my Apple iPad. I said, I've purchased the Apple iPad case when I bought it from apple.com. And I said, it's not sturdy at all. So the Apple iPad case is black and it's like a book, and it's actually designed just to fold over the Apple iPad, but it folds back and it acts as a stand both in portrait and in landscape modes. And I don't have it here to demonstrate because I traded it in while we were at the Apple store. Because if you have one of these book cases and you stand it on end, portrait or landscape, you'll see that it's very flimsy. It's not something that I would put a $699 product in that is known to shatter when it falls at all. It's not a very sturdy stand at all. So I traded it in, and again, my sales rep was not very helpful. He was very, meh. And he said to me, here's the cases that we have. And so I said, explain to him what I needed and why, what my concerns were for an Apple iPad case. I would really like to have a stand, since I did buy the wireless USB keyboard to go with my iPad. And I would also like to use it as a digital photo frame. And so a stand is very important to me, and one that's not going to just easily get knocked over or blow over when the breeze comes by or something. And also wanted a case that had more of a grip to it, because my concern with the Apple iPad, as we've talked about in my previous post, is that it's made to put in one hand and use with the other. And this is because it's a touchscreen item, so it's very much like an iPhone, and so you have to use it like this. And so I wanted something with more of a grip to it. I think this is very important. And by the way, I want to clarify about that, because there were some comments made at my blog about the fact that I dropped and shattered my iPad. I did not actually drop my iPad. I didn't actually, accidentally drop it or anything like that. I was holding it like this when it happened, so I can demonstrate this for you now that I have one again. That's not going to cut me out. But I was holding it like this, and I was shopping online, and I was walking. So I wasn't holding it way out, and I didn't accidentally dump it over. I actually was holding it very close to myself, and I was shopping just like this. And so you can see this is how I was doing it. And I went around a corner, and the thing just slid off my hand. Literally, like just flew in midair. And then it flipped and landed on the face. So it wasn't like I actually dropped it. That didn't actually happen. So anyway, while I was at the Apple store, let me back up, speaking of the shattered screen, and let you know that he asked that I clear all of my data off of the iPad. And I said, do you have any gloves on hand for that? And he goes, no. Again, the guy shrugs everything off. He's just very matter of fact. It was very strange. And so I had to literally use the shattered touchscreen to clear my data, okay? And I'm picking shards of glass out of my finger right here in the Apple store. The other thing that really bothered me about the customer service is, as I said, I brought it in the box, and this was because I wanted to contain all the glass, and I wanted to get it there in one piece, and I didn't want to get it all over me. So I get there, and of course, my box is full of glass. The top of the box, when you lift the top off the box, the top of the box was just kind of shining with itty bitty tiny specks of glass all over it. There was glass all in the box. So when they brought me the replacement iPad, which cost $349 plus tax, the major problem I had was that he put it back in my box full of glass. So of course I made mention about it, and he takes it out and he says, well, I'll go blow it out. So he goes out in the back and blows out the box. It still has glass in it. Like I said, my experience at the Apple store was a huge disappointment. I really had this vision that Apple customer service was going to be top notch. I had this vision that the Genius Bar that you actually made an appointment for and got there on time for would be in a place where you were well taken care of, with someone who knew what they were doing. So I just was incredibly disappointed with the whole setup.